We're almost halfway through the year and I decided, you know what? Let's rank every F1 team in 2025. I know this video is going to make some people angry. Please, if you're one of those people, don't take it personal. This video is my personal opinion and I'm always make my bias very clear. I'm a Ferrari fan. You can see that in the background right there. Look how cool the Apex GP helmet looks right there. Here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to start from the back of the pack, like the worst in the constructors, all the way to number 1. So from number 10 to number 1. In this video, we're going to break down the data, but also how they actually look like on track, because some teams' data may look better, but not really on track, or they have like a lot of internal problems, like this one over here. Let's start with Alpine, and I'm sorry if you're an Alpine fan, this year, it's not your year, my friend. Look, Alpine is a team that looked very promising a few years ago, but little by little, that team's just getting worse. Pierre Gasly isn't really a bad driver, so I feel bad for the guy, and Franco Colapinto isn't that bad either. He has a lot to learn. He's a rookie, but that's a car that's struggling so much to get out of Q1. In my opinion, Alpine should change a lot of things radically going into the 2026 season with the new upgrades. I hope they're really working on that, because with this regulation change, that's their only chance to really change this team. If I was them, I wouldn't put any effort or bets anymore into 2025. We're already almost halfway through the season and they're doing horrible. That's the truth. The next one is Sauber, and Sauber is a team that's complicated because next year they're turning into Audi, and we know that they have all of their sights focused on 2026. Look, Nico Hülkenberg is a driver that I like. Podiumless career, yes, but at the same time, he's a solid driver. He just got very unlucky his whole career, kind of like Fernando Alonso, but at least Fernando Alonso became champion many times. Of course, I'm not comparing the two. Fernando Alonso is a much better driver, perhaps one of the best in history. But the problem with Sauber is that it's changing names, it's changing leadership next year, it's changing into Audi, like I said before, but also they have Bortoleto, which is a rookie. And rookies in smaller teams don't tend to perform as well as rookies in bigger teams because they don't get much of a chance. They don't have the money, they don't have the car, they just struggle a lot more, even though Bortoleto is a great driver. And so far on paper, he looked like he was going to be one of the best rookies coming into Formula 1 this year. But that was not the case. And the reason why I don't think it's him, it's the car. Look, the truth about Sauber right now is that they're a placeholder team for Audi to come into the sport in 2026. So not much to say about them. They're not doing well. Number 8 is quite surprising because Aston Martin isn't the best team in Formula 1, has never been, but they were pretty good a few years ago. Not only that, but they have the most experienced driver in Formula 1 right now, Fernando Alonso, who not only is a 2-time champion, but also won Le Mans and competed in so many other forms of motorsport and killed it. Of course, we also have Lance Stroll with all the drama going on right now and being MIA, but that's Lance Stroll. I mean, what you gonna expect? The main problem I see with Aston Martin, even though they say they're working on this year, I don't think that Adrian Newey is working much on this year's car. I think they're very much focused on 2026, and it's the right move. If you have Adrian Newey in your team, the GOAT, you should definitely focus on the future, especially with the regulation change. So I don't really think that Aston Martin is gonna improve a lot throughout this season. I hope they do, because I like Fernando Alonso, but as he says, he's the unluckiest driver, and this year it looks very much so like that. Let's talk about Racing Bulls, and there's a lot to talk about with this team. This team is one that started so well at the beginning of the year. Very much the biggest surprise we had earlier in the season. And they have one of the best rookies we've seen this year. A big surprise, Isaac Hadjar. I don't think many of us would have ranked him so high among these new rookies, but so far he's killing it. He's probably one of the best ones after like Kimi Antonelli. The main problem that Racing Bulls has and will always have is that they're Red Bull's testing laboratory. They treat this team like lab rats. They take their drivers, they move them to the big Red Bull, and it makes sense because that's their second team. That's where they create talent, test things, and once those rookies are ready, they put them in the main team and they fail compared to Max Verstappen, and then they kick him out. But look, if you're a Racing Bull fan, not a Red Bull fan, Racing Bulls, leave it down below in the comments, because I'm yet to meet a single Racing Bulls fan. And it's not because the team sucks, it's a great team. I actually like it quite a bit. The problem, like I said before, is that they're always treated like Red Bull's kindergarten or preschool. They send the kids there to learn and get ready, and then they move them to Red Bull. So I never expect much out of Racing Bulls. If anything, they're doing pretty well for how they're treated. Next up, we got Haas, the reliable midfielder, and that's all they've been this year. Nothing wrong with that, but nothing surprising. The only thing that's surprising about Haas is that Ollie Behrman is performing pretty well, sometimes outperforming his teammate Ocon. But do I see much upward momentum for Haas? Truly not. And it kind of sucks because I know a lot of American viewers treat Haas like the American team, and if you don't have Haas, you don't have anyone. That's why even though I live in America, I support Ferrari. No, I'm just kidding. That's not why. I started watching it more than 20 years ago and Haas wasn't a thing. And that's the proof too to the doubters. Do you think that if I started watching Formula 1 a few years ago, I would be a Ferrari fan with how bad they've been doing, they haven't won a championship in like 20 years, and they've been struggling like crazy for the past 10, but we're gonna get into that later when we get to Ferrari. All right, let's talk about Williams. Williams is back. I was very surprised this year with Williams. That combo, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, has been really good for them. The car looked really good, especially starting the season. Their pace is good. Yes, they have moments where they wreck the car or they have some mechanical failure we've seen this year, but so far they're on the rise, there's no doubt, and they have a good team. Let's talk about Red Bull, the main team. Oh my. Here's the truth about Red Bull. If you remove Verstappen from that equation, they are cooked. They had internal issues with Christian Horner. Helmut Marko, I read the news today, might be replaced by Sebastian Vettel, which is probably a good idea, but it's going to take some time to adjust. The car is nowhere near what it was even at the beginning of 2024. This is a team that's been extremely dominant and doing so well for so many years that it honestly kind of sucks to see them not doing well at all this year. Oh, we also had the driver swaps. They started with Liam Lawson. 5 races in, they were like, no, you're out. Then they bring in Yuki, a driver I like a lot, and they're probably going to ruin his career. That's the truth. Max Verstappen, hats off to what he's doing this year. He's carrying the team by himself, but the truth is, you can't carry a whole team on your back by yourself. And the future also looks grim for Red Bull. That's the problem, because next year we're going into that regulation change, and they're going into it after losing Adrian Newey. So if you're a Red Bull fan, let me know down below what you think they should do, because I really don't know. They're in big trouble right now. But also stay hopeful, because teams come and go. They get better at certain times, they get worse at certain times. I've been waiting for Ferrari to get better for like 20 years as I lose my hair watching those races, so that's just the truth. All right, next up we have Ferrari. Look, Ferrari in the past 2 decades has been like the Grim Reaper. It's where drivers have been going with all hopes and dreams, and then their careers were... Here's the main problem with Ferrari, coming from a fan. Ferrari is so inconsistent. They have 1 good weekend, 2 bad weekends. The car is fast, and they have one of the best driver lineups in the whole grid. If they had the same car as McLaren, they could probably beat them. They have Lewis Hamilton, a guy who's broken like every record in Formula 1, and Charles Leclerc, who's now a seasoned driver. He's no longer a rookie. But here's the main problem with Ferrari: strategy, development, and leadership. Day after day, month after month, the only good thing we've seen come out of Ferrari is memes. And once again, this is coming from a Ferrari fan. Please get it together. All right, next up we got Mercedes, a team that's genuinely improving with insane potential for the future. And I honestly feel so sorry for Lewis Hamilton having to watch those Mercedes fly past the Ferraris this year. George Russell looks like a much more mature driver this year, has sharply changed his whole demeanor, looks like a good team leader, getting good results. I made a whole video about George Russell because he is the consistency king. Yes, he's not the best driver on the grid, but he's definitely up there, and he's consistent, more consistent than anyone else. You can count on him to get you at least a P5 or higher lately. And then we got Kimi Antonelli, F1's biggest promise for the future. A guy who just became the 3rd youngest pole sitter in F1 history, together with Max Verstappen and, surprisingly, Lance Stroll. And I've talked about Kimi so many times in the past. In my opinion, he's going to have a very bright future, and he's going to be competing with Oscar Piastri in a couple years for the championship. If we didn't have this regulation change and we had the same trajectory as how these teams are evolving, I could definitely see a future where McLaren and Mercedes are competing for the title, and Kimi Antonelli up there. But of course, as of right now, let's not look away from George Russell, and Mercedes leadership has been doing great things lately. Of course, they're not at their 2019-2020 peak, but don't forget that Mercedes until recently had been struggling quite a bit, and so far they're doing really well. They just passed Ferrari, and they're number 2 in the constructors now. So hats off to Mercedes. They're doing a great job. All right, number 1, we got McLaren, and we got a lot to talk about with McLaren. Here's the deal. Between Zach Brown and Andrea Stella, this team has taken off. They did a radical, revolutionary change in the past few years, and now they're at the top again. A team that's historically legendary. A team that had drivers like Senna and Prost back at the top. So even though I'm a Ferrari fan and McLaren tends to be Ferrari's rival in history, I have nothing bad to say about McLaren. Great job, hats off. I wish Ferrari was doing this year. The problem that McLaren is going to have is the papaya rules. I've talked about this before. I know a lot of you guys like it. I personally don't. I like when teams have a first driver, second driver, and ideally a more veteran driver, more seasoned, that's securing points, and then a rookie that you're teaching the ropes for the future. I don't see this at McLaren. I see 2 stars clashing, and we are seeing this every weekend, especially with the mistake that Lando Norris just made in Canada, hitting Oscar Piastri. That's the first rule in Formula 1. You do not hit your teammate. So I see a lot of rumors on social media, nothing for sure, but people are saying that McLaren is about to take some action and pick a first driver, second driver. Who knows? I honestly don't think they will, because McLaren has done this historically where they let let their drivers compete, which is fine. But at certain times, you need to create rules for your team. And it doesn't look like they're doing that. And the problem with so much competition is that you get two drivers like Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris who are great drivers with a great car, and they both want to be champion. Understandable. And then Lando Norris ends up crashing into Oscar Piastri, something we've seen in the past between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, and also a McLaren between Prost and Senna, two of the greatest drivers of all time. And this is always created by their rules. They're lucky that they have star drivers that can still get a lot of points even if they DNF by crashing into each other, because if a smaller team had two drivers crashing into each other, it would be the end of them. But overall, two great drivers. Oscar Piastri has the brightest future in Formula 1. We'll see what happens with the 2026 regulations, but the talent is definitely there. The leadership is very good. Whether you like Zach Brown and Andrea Stella or not, personally, what they've done at McLaren has been nothing but stellar. And it's looking very much like this year they're going to steal the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship. And to be honest, they deserve it. They've done a great job. But hopefully Mercedes creates a little more competition to make things more fun for us. All right, that's where we stand. Those are my thoughts. You've seen the points. You've seen my analysis. Let me know where you stand on all of these teams and what's going on this year down below in the comments. I'll be reading them and answering them as always. Of course, if you like honest F1 breakdowns like this one, you can click subscribe right here, and you can watch the next video that I created just for you by clicking right here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.